Hi guys, welcome to the Jack Revell show. So today I've got a special guest and friend actually from my fellow coaching circle. Her name is Amelia Kirk. She is a life balance and mindset coach based in London. And Amelia and I have known each other through coaching and through, the world in which is the coaching academy and kind of like Instagram and all the rest of it. And I've brought her on today because I wanted to talk to her about her story and her journey, about where she's kind of come from to get to this point today. And I love talking to people about their journey of how they got to where they are, because there's always something to learn from it and always something to take away from it in everyone's lives, including my own. So this is why I love doing this show. But look, I want to welcome Amelia to the show. Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Super, super, super good. Thank you for coming on and spending this morning with me. Look, first of all, I just wanted to ask you, coaching, right? I've had a few coaches on the show already, and I wanted to kind of get an understanding of what is coaching to you? Like, what does it mean to you? And what is it, how would you describe coaching in your own words?
So for me, it's very much about helping somebody get to where they want to be. Sometimes it's helping them figure out where that might be as well. Like a lot of the time, people just aren't sure about what it is that they want. And we've all been kind of fed this line of what life should be and, what those kind of milestones are that we should be aiming for. And I think a lot of people have seen, obviously, with the pandemic, take a step back, actually look at what you want. So for me, it's about helping somebody to get there. And I think one thing with coaching is, and a lot of people say it, and it's kind of a risky thing to say, nobody needs a coach, but actually a coach can help you so much to get to where you might never have got to otherwise. But I think it's my experience as a coach and having been coached as well, it's just life-changing.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right there. Nobody necessarily needs a coach, just like you don't need to have a car or need to, buy a house or whatever, but it's a benefit in life that I think a lot of people are depriving themselves of because either they haven't experienced it or they just aren't really sure whether it will work for them or not. So I think that's great. Now, look, you work with mostly women and ambitious and driven women, as you said to me as well. But why do you work with those particular types of people?
So I work with women mainly, going to be completely honest. I've just always gelled better with women. I grew up around women. I went to sort of all girls schools. I just spent a lot of time with women, and that
girls club.
It's just the environment I feel most comfortable in. And I know that if I'm going to feel most comfortable, I can give the best for my clients. Perfect. So it's not like a hard and fast rule. There's the odd person I would make an exception for, but generally speaking, I prefer to work with women. It's the space that I feel most comfortable in. And I think a lot of my clients then feel more comfortable in that space as well. And in terms of being kind of ambitious and driven, I think, I want to be on an exciting journey with somebody. I left my job to coach because I wanted to do a job that I love. And as much as I love coaching, there's particular people that it's more enjoyable to coach. And to see people just go after what they want is amazing. So that's why it kind of falls into that category as well.
Perfect. And so what led you into coaching? Let's take it back to the very beginning, because you weren't always a coach. You've had a few different things that you've told me about, but let's fill our listeners in. What started, where let's take us back to the beginning. What were you doing before coaching? What kind of put you on this journey?
So I'd say it's probably the last year where I have just made a huge, huge life change. This time last year, I was away traveling, and I decided last summer, I basically hit complete burnout. I don't think I realized that at the time. I remember so clearly thinking, if I went to the doctors now, I'd be signed off work, but I don't have time to do that because I'm leaving. I knew I had a sabbatical booked in. I remember thinking that, and like now looking back on that, that shouldn't happen. But I also know that I'm probably not alone in having had that experience at all.
What was the burnout you were experiencing?
I was just completely overwhelmed. I'd booked to go traveling because I knew, like the year before it, I decided I was going to go, and I was going to go with my partner. And I just realized I didn't want my life to just be what I was doing. So I thought, right, I know, I'll go off traveling. And it was this, I used to always have this really sort of all or nothing mentality, which is why now a lot of my coaching is around life balance. And I remember so clearly saying to my partner, I've got this great idea so that we'll have like more balance, like let's go off traveling. And he was like, one, was not that on board initially, but also was like, you realize that's not balance, that's the opposite. You're just stopping and going and doing something else.
That's called running away from all of your fears and actually what life is all about. Yeah, go for it.
So I'd chosen that I was going to go traveling. I had it booked in. I had a sabbatical from work. I got a promotion 6 weeks before I was due to go. So I was trying to fit everything into this time. I was just nervous about going as well, because one of my friends at the time was like, this is really off brand for you to go off traveling. It just wasn't. Brand. Yeah. And I love that saying now. And I keep saying it, but it had never appealed to me. So a lot of people are like, oh, this is very strange. So I was really nervous about that. So I think that was causing some anxiety. Work had been causing anxiety for quite a long time. And I was just trying to cram everything in to this 6 weeks before I left. And I was just not in a good place at all.
What was the reason for going traveling in the first place? I mean, had you realized that the burnout was kind of like creeping in and you were like, I need something to change?
I think I remember really clearly, I was away with my mum on holiday and I had been working in my particular role. So I worked at a really luxury health club. It's like the biggest health club in Europe. And I was the concierge manager there. And I was essentially kind of waiting for the person above me to leave to get that promotion. And in the meantime, I was doing a lot of that role as well. Obviously, you don't get the salary when you're not actually doing the role. And I kind of was like, oh, I'm in a bit of a waiting game. Maybe I should go away at this point. And also, I think I just realized I don't want to look back and all I've done is just work.
Mm.
And it wasn't that stage where I didn't have any life balance at all. I remember I missed a really close friend from school. I missed her hen do because I had shifts that I ended up needing to cover last minute. And it just was completely taking over. So I think it was that I was realizing that there wasn't that balance. Like looking back, I can see this now. There wasn't that balance. And I just wanted to have something outside of work to give me something, some kind of enjoyment, something. I think maybe as well, just to explore that there's more out there. There's more to life than just going into work every day, coming home and being stressed about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, balance, it's a big word, and it's also could mean a lot of different things, a lot of different people's heads. So what does it mean to you?
So for me now, when I talk about balance, and it also ties in with what my kind of view of success now for me is building a business that I'm able to have life balance. That means I don't want to work 40 hours a week. You know, ideally I'd be doing probably up to 30 hours a week. I want a dog. I really want a dog. I'm moving house soon so I can have a dog. Balance to me, it's all of these like really personal things. Being able to actually find time in my day for the things that I love and that bring me joy. And it's interesting, and I'm still slightly divided over it a little bit, that when I kind of moved into coaching, I think for a lot of people in any industry, their job becomes their identity. And I think particularly with a coach, it can seep into all areas of your life. And actually, I don't want that. I don't want to just define myself as that. I do want to have some kind of compartmentalization of things and to have things be separate and to, not only get joy from my job. I want to have that, of course, but I want to embrace all those other things that I just love.
That's it. I hear time and time again, and I see it all the time, people defining themselves by what they do, not who they are. And it's fascinating because you do see these people who, and it's their great expressions like, oh, how have you been? Oh, super busy. And it's like this, it's like a merit of an award or something like that.
It's a badge of honor, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
so busy and so stressed. And oh my God, it's almost like we should praise the people that are being so stressed, so busy, and almost the point, oh no, I couldn't do that because I was working till 11 o'clock last night. I'm like, what are we living in the 50s? Like, this isn't cool. Like, people don't do this anymore, And I think that so many people are just delusional to the fact that life isn't all about work. And actually, when you do work all the time, you lose your identity totally. You end up ruining relationships with the people that are closest to you. You end up forming relationships with people that, are at work and stuff. But most of the time, people move at the sight of a better paycheck or whatever it is anyway. So it's interesting that it's, you've seen that first of all, and then decided to move into something that is obviously much more flexible for you and much more on your own terms. How have you found it with the whole global pandemic and things. I mean, that was a big spanner in the works that I'm sure you didn't plan for.
Well, and do you know what? I just wanted to touch on what you just said there in terms of people, when you like your whole kind of identity is tied up with your work, that it means your self-worth is so affected by your work. And especially if you're, you know, an entrepreneur or something, you put something out into the world and it doesn't get maybe the reaction that you want or whatever, that's not a like resemblance of you as a person. And when you attach all of your worth to that, it becomes so like difficult. And I think this is actually what happened for so many people with the pandemic, regardless of whether they run their own business or, you know, worked in a corporate environment. They tied up their identity hugely with their workplace, and either they suddenly maybe were furloughed, had nothing to do, but actually you had everything, you could do whatever you wanted.
That's it.
And I heard so many people saying, you know, I'm really lacking structure, I'm lacking routine, I really miss that. And I've said to a few people, you know, and obviously everyone's situation is different, but actually for a lot of people that were my age, it in some ways came at almost the best time. We don't have young children at home, which I think is very, very difficult, but we're also out of the phase of like not being able to like go out and like missing all of that side of things. It kind of happened at the best time it could, really. Like, I think I've been in lucky in that sense. But actually it's like, you have the most control over your routine and structure than you have ever had.
That's it.
But because we've been so kind of just conditioned to think about work and everything tied up with that, no one was really able to see that. And it's like, just create the structure that you want.
That's it. That's exactly it. It's creating and designing the life that you actually really want to live, you know. And yes, of course, if you've been used to getting on a train every morning at the same time and going into work and you know, eating the same breakfast and meeting the same people and doing the same sort of stuff, great. That's fine. And that's if that's what you enjoy. But it doesn't mean that now that everyone's working from home or whatever the future brings for us, that you have to be feeling depressed and anxious and sort of, you know, sad that that's not your way. Just create what works for you. And I think that the fact the world had to basically stop has given everybody a really big reality pill of holy crap, this is actually, you know, I need to sort something out, or I need to change something, which is why we're seeing so many people start businesses and you know, entrepreneurs coming out of our ears, and it's a fantastic experience. So I think
it's really exciting.
We are living exciting times. It really, really is. But I want to go back a little bit on kind of what you were saying about before you started, you know, looking into coaching and before you went traveling and stuff. What, you know, you mentioned to me before that anxiety was quite a big thing for you. And I'd like to ask you a bit about that, because I think it's a topic that a lot of people can relate to, but don't necessarily always talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what was your journey with anxiety?
So for me, I remember now, if I go back a few years, one of the, like, almost pretty much to the day I got a promotion to this role I had for quite a while, this concierge manager role, my jaw started clicking, because I had such tension in my jaw, because I obviously slept, like grinding my teeth, whatever it was. And, you know, that was the first sign. And that was probably 3 years ago now. I ignored it. But from that kind of that time, I could tell that I was just more stressed. Like, there was just a lot of stress there. And when I decided to go away traveling, I kind of just assumed that would solve it all, because I was very much like, I'm stressed, my stress has caused me anxiety, and my stress is just due to work. So once I'm not working for kind of 4 months, I won't be anxious. And unfortunately, that was absolutely not the case. And I did find when I was away, I actually was really anxious, and it made me, I'm glad that it happened, because it made me kind of sit up, pay attention and go, okay, this obviously isn't just to do with work. I think that probably was the trigger for a lot of it, but that wasn't kind of it at all. A lot of mine actually was real kind of social anxiety. So me and my partner were away for just under sort of 4.5 months.
Wow.
He's quite a social person. I'm not.
Where did you go, by the way? Sorry, where did you go traveling?
It was amazing. So we went to Canada. We spent like 3 weeks in a camper van in Canada, and then we went to Fiji for like a week, New Zealand, the Philippines. We were meant to go to Borneo, and I actually didn't end up going because of my anxiety, and I met my mum instead and did some of Malaysia, and then we did Japan. It was amazing.
Gosh, what a trip!
It was absolutely quite crammed full, and in that whole time, we did not make a single friend. We didn't go out for drinks with other people. Like, and I know you've been traveling, so like that's quite a weird thing.
It's interesting because traveling on your own, it forces you to do that. You know, when I went traveling when I was 20 or whatever the first time, it was like I went on my own because you like, well, if I don't, I'm just going to be this person that's just doing what I was doing in another country. But when you go with, and I've also traveled with other people, and you do tend to stay away from kind of other groups when you're with someone because it's just easier, isn't it? You've already got someone to talk to. But there's a lot of what traveling is all about is pushing yourself outside your comfort zones and meeting new people and trying new things. But so you didn't do any of that. You weren't meeting people.
So I definitely pushed myself out my comfort zone, but not in terms of meeting new people. And I think I was really anxious. And there were a few things that happened that were genuine fears that I think just didn't really help. So when we were in Canada in a camper van, we had a load of mice, and I just can't stand it. And I think that just added to this feeling of feeling just way out of my depth. As I said before, obviously this whole thing was very off-brand for me anyway. So it was something that was scary. You know, I don't particularly like sort of going to like a party, like getting to know different people. I like my friends, and I'm getting better at it, and I'm enjoying it more. And this links back to me really realizing a lot of this was about people pleasing, and I had put so much weight on what other people would think of me. So yeah, when we were away, I just would prefer to spend my time like with my partner. And there were times I remember like we were in Japan and it was incredible, but I really struggled with the food. And it just meant that I was just in this weird headspace, and we'd gone out for the day and we'd come back. And I remember one evening just scrolling on Instagram, like completely like mindlessly. And we were meant to be going out for dinner. I just was like, I couldn't find the energy to do anything. And I just thought, this is not like, what is going on? I was a bit homesick as well. So we did end up coming back earlier than planned. Which with everything that happened with the pandemic actually was an absolute godsend, because it meant I got to go back into my job and was able to be covered by sort of the furlough scheme and everything. So I do think everything happens for a reason. But I remember coming back and going, right, I need to do something about this. And I went to the doctor. I did a few things to go, like I came off my my pill and things, because that obviously messes with your hormones. And I was like, right, I'm going to do quite a lot of things to just try and just take control. I stopped drinking. I haven't drunk since the last night we were away.
Congratulations.
A lot of things that I was just going like, I need to take this seriously. And I remember going to the doctor, and I completely avoided actually talking about it. I said I was coming off my pill, and it essentially kind of made it a conversation about contraception, which was not what I wanted to go and talk about. And then right at the end, when she does, is there anything else? I was like, actually, I just burst into tears. And I said, like, I'm really worried about going back to work. I'm going back into quite a highly stressful situation. If I did want to kind of find any kind of counselling, how do I go about doing that? And I was just an absolute flood of tears. And she kind of asked me what I did and was talking a little bit more about it. And the sentence that stuck with me so clearly, and she kind of said, do you see your job as being sustainable, like how you're living? And I was like, well, no, but all my friends are in the same kind of situation, like in a different job. They're still really stressed. And I was like, it's kind of normal. And I remember she just said to me, just because it's normal doesn't mean that it's okay. And I was just like, oh, that's so true.
It's that belief, isn't it? You had a belief ingrained in you that you were meant to be just like everybody else, and stressed and not happy and unbalanced and all the rest of it. But it was totally untrue. It was something that you'd just it was just something that had it happen because of your environment.
Yeah. And this is one of the biggest things I've had to learn, is accepting that your life is a choice. And like before, when I've been like, oh, sorry, I can't come to your Hendy because I have to work. I've chosen that, and you have to accept it. And I think people find that really hard to actually go, I have chosen this. But it's really empowering, because you go, I've chosen this, I can choose again. I don't have to stay in this life that I've chosen. I can make something different. So that was a massive learning for me. And I think when it comes to life balance and there's people pleasing, which is what I spend a lot of time talking about, people find it really hard to accept that they have chosen how they live.
That's it. It comes down to first of all, like two things. First of all, the values that people live their life by.
Yeah.
Your values are essentially your roadmap, your GPS, your North Star. Whatever you value most in life is the thing that you then you find the way to make those things the most important. So, for you at the time, it was probably something along the lines of work or significance, or, feeling like you were moving up in the world or something, and that was important to you. But then the other things that were equally as important to you, equally as more your values, your friends and your family, you were just pushing to one side, because that was, and it caused you to become this, unbalanced, but also just you weren't yourself. And it's clear that the way you're talking, that you're looking back on that and just going, who was I? Like, what was I doing?
It's so weird when you do look back and just think, why did I do that? And I think it's interesting that you say that. I think a lot of it was never like money driven. I think it was my kind of idea of success, probably more like title wise. And I think some of that stems from, I didn't go to university. I left school and went straight to drama school. I wanted to be an actress. And I spent a couple of years kind of after drama school doing lots of fringe things. Everything was unpaid, and decided eventually it just wasn't the right thing for me. And I'm really happy I made that decision. But I think, looking back, probably subconsciously, everything I've done since then has been striving to prove that I'm capable of succeeding in something. Even if it gets to a point where you go, well, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's what really hit me when I got back from traveling. I went back into my role. I'd been moved to a different club, but within the same company. And I was going into like a temporary kind of contract there. And I have the impression, I don't know, so maybe I'm just tooting my own like trumpet, but that like the kind of the next stage was was for me to be a general manager. And I suddenly was like, oh, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to constantly need to be on my phone in case there's been some kind of emergency. Like, no, thank you. And that was what then really, really triggered me to go, what is it that I really enjoy about my job? And when I was away, what I'd missed was the people, and not the relationships either, without being rude to anybody. It wasn't the like relationships. Actually, some of my closest friends had already left the business, but it was being able to help people and develop people. And that's what I loved. And that was a huge part of my leadership style, which I now realize I was coaching. I just didn't know that then. And that's when I then looked more into kind of different options. I was thinking about HR and different things, and coaching kept coming up. And I was like, right, I need to pay this some attention and find out what it is, because like a lot of people, I didn't really know what it was. And yeah, then there was that switch for me just before lockdown, registered to do a course, and just, everything just changed from there, really.
That's fantastic. I love that you came to that realization through like a really organic roller coaster type way. But I believe that, good things happen, but also bad things happen, and there's no right or wrong, but you always learn from both sides. And you either learn from the good things, what work well, and do them more, or you learn from the bad things and don't either do them again. Say, you can't make the same mistake. If you make the same mistake twice, you're stupid, because it's you can't, if you do it once that you didn't know, so you move forward. But coaching, like as you said, seems like what you were doing was actually coaching people without even realize you were doing it. So that's super good. One thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you start to find out what you wanted and understand kind of like what it is that you wanted? Because that is a huge question that I ask myself every day. I get people I've coached that have asked that, people in my past that have asked that. It's like, what do I want? What do I want to want? Is a really good kind of question. But how did you come about finding the answer to that?
So for me, and again, it's something that comes up with my clients and I talk to them about as well, I stopped focusing on finding the job that was my dream job. Because I think, again, coming back to this, like you attach everything to what your job is. I stopped focusing on like, what is it that I could do that will fill all those boxes? And like you say, actually, it really organically ended up sort of happening. And I started focusing on more kind of what I wanted to feel, what the rest of my life I wanted it to look like. And that did come back to this kind of balance and, what are all those other elements that I already know that I love and enjoy? What could maybe then fit in with that? But focusing on, I guess, how I wanted to feel. It took the pressure off as well, because you can start taking action on that straight away. If I know I want to feel balanced, or I want to feel sort of nourished, or, whatever, I can start eating better. I can start, just figuring out my time better, spending the time with people I want, whether I'm still in the job that I didn't like or not. But you can start shifting your life. And I think then those things start to fall into place.
So what is the common challenge that people find, the one that if that sorts itself out or figures itself out, the kind of the domino effect happens and the rest will fall into place? What is the biggest one you find with just not just yourself and your circle group, but also clients and people you've spoken to?
I think for me, and it's I've really organically realized this as well, people pleasing. It just infiltrates every area of our lives without us realizing. Again, to make a generalization, I do think it happens more with women. I think we just like, and I knew that I did it. And it's funny, I had a call with somebody, I was kind of like, oh no, I know, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. And I kind of said it as a bit of a joke because I also sort of thought it was a good thing. The same way I think we used to talk about perfectionism of like, you know, you'd say it at a job interview, like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, like, it's pretty good. You know, that's what you want. And I think we suddenly had this shift. But yeah, I think it impacts like everything. It impacts how you show up in your romantic relationship, in your friendships, in your work. You just feel this need to please people. And like I said, actually, for me, that was a huge part of what was triggering my anxiety. It wasn't about being in a big room full of people. You know, I don't care if there's lots of people around. I'm happy. I like being in a buzzy place. I'm just worried about what people will think of me, and noticing the real impact of that. And when I came back, obviously I went to the doctor, and one of the things that happened was I was meant to be going out for dinner, you know, something so simple and basic. I was meant to be going out for dinner with my boyfriend and a few of his friends. We've been together like 3.5 years, at this point about 3 years. And I was so nervous. I'd met most of these people before because I was worried about what they would think of me. And it's just absurd. Like, and it's not, like I say, it's absurd. It's not, because it's normal and a lot of people go through it, but we shouldn't have to. And being able to let go of that just unleashes so much stuff.
Okay. I get that, because that is a huge issue. And I think that a lot of people listening would relate to that in some way, shape or form. But what are the practical steps that someone needs to take if you know, let's say someone's listening to this and going like, yeah, that's me. I'm doing something this weekend that I'm nervous about, anxious about, or, you know, I can't stop, you know, looking at people on Instagram and comparing myself to them, whatever it might be. What is it? What's the first step? What can people do super simply, you know, right now that would help them just breathe and get themselves through those moments?
Set some boundaries. Say no to things as well. Like if there's something that you're really, really uncomfortable with doing, take a moment, whether it's journaling, whether it's going out for a walk and just thinking about it. Figure out exactly what is it you're worried about. Because I think I went back to work for a little bit after furlough, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go back. A lot of it is because obviously I was doing my coaching, I didn't want to be there, but I had this really kind of generalized feeling of worry. And when I actually took the time to go, what is it specifically that I'm worried about? There was about 1 or 2 things specifically. Whereas because I just made it this kind of just washed it, everything was like awful. So I'd say take a couple of minutes to like actually think, what is it that I'm really, really worried about? Are there a few things, like small things that I can do to make this a little bit more comfortable for me? So like, for example, the example I just gave with this going to meet my boyfriend's friends, actually, what I could have done to make that better. Because actually what happened to me that evening, I got lost, couldn't find where I was going, burst into tears, called my boyfriend and went home. I didn't even go. Like, you know, what? I'm 30 years old. But like really simple things. And this one really surprised me, but I actually work with a coach specifically around my anxiety. I do not deal well with things when I'm hungry. And I know we joke about this, about being like hangry and things.
No, it's definitely a word. It means absolutely exactly what it says on the tin. You get angry when you're hungry. It's a thing.
But also, like when I was talking to my coach about it, she said also it's this idea, the whole, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Your basic needs are not being met. So is it that surprising that you're then finding other things more difficult? So actually it's going, if I'd had a snack, which sounds ridiculous, that probably would have helped me. If I'd said to my boyfriend, can you come and meet me at the station? So it would take some of that anxiety away. Like find those little steps that will help you feel more comfortable. And if you really, really don't want to do something, don't do it.
That's it. There's Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human basic needs, and they are certainty, variety, significance, and connection or love. And that they're the ones that we need as all humans need those. And then the other 2 that are more spiritual are growth and contribution. Okay. And every single person on this planet has 2 of those, of the first 4 that are usually the most important to them. And from listening to you, I would hazard a guess that sort of significance and certainty are probably the ones that you need the most, because it sounds like you, unless you knew exactly what was happening, kind of like in that situation, you feel anxious. And also
certainty,
then
definitely. That's like absolutely hit the nail on the head.
and then there's significance of obviously being, you know, good in your job and progressing in your career, and kind of feeling like you had to work instead of go to your hen do's and that sort of thing. It was that kind of significance thing. And it's interesting when you suddenly highlight those and you realize those, you then start to shift and start to think, well, actually, what do I want? And it's incredible now how you're in a position now where I think, if I'm right in saying, growth and contribution are actually your two biggest things, because you are growing as a human, you are moving forward, you're learning, you're developing, you're, you know, working on yourself, which is ultimately helping you help other people, and you're contributing to other people's lives and helping them get better at what they want to do, and getting these women out of these, you know, unbalanced, you know, anxious places that you were once in yourself. So yeah, I think discovering or understanding what the human needs are, first of all, but when you have moments like that and you start moving towards stuff that actually helps you rather than hinders you, it's such a powerful place to be. So I think it's great that you've realized that earlier, sooner rather than later, because, you know, people sit in those stages for years.
It's like, it's interesting, like, actually, you know, I've got kind of family members that there's stuff that they're just not willing to sort of deal with. And I've also really had to accept that it's not my place to make them do that either, which is really hard, because you want to help somebody. But I know, especially if I'm talking about people pleasing, I can't try and force somebody into doing something to please me. Like, that's the opposite of, you know, what I actually really want to kind of preach about. But yeah, it's difficult sometimes to see somebody not want to kind of acknowledge those things that they kind of know.
That's it. It's I mean, as the old saying goes, you can't coach someone that doesn't want to be coached, as is, you know, if you can lead a horse to water and you can't make him drink, that sort of thing. It's the old age truth that people need to better help themselves before, you know, they can accept help from other people. What is the biggest challenge that you faced personally going through this transition from working, burnout, anxiety around traveling, coming back, realizing that this isn't what you want to do, then finding coaching, and then moving into the space you are now? Kind of, what is the biggest aha moment, if you like, for you, you know, through that journey?
I think it felt really right. So actually, I don't feel like I came across that many challenges, or maybe I just didn't view them as challenges, because I was just really ready to just kind of give it my all. So yeah, I think like it has been difficult, and I think it's accepting that you're going to make that change, and realizing a bit, like I said, you know, just changing my work and my business, and that does impact so much. And it obviously came at a time when there was so much change for everybody. And I think just growth and learning for everyone, I feel like I've grown up a lot in this time. So there's those kind of just normal challenges in a way, but actually it's probably felt like the easiest decision that I've ever made.
That's amazing. That's so good. Now, I follow you on Instagram. I love your posts, your stories, your everything. I think you've done such an amazing job at literally just going from like literally zero to hero in the last couple of months. It's incredible, actually. And you know, you've done it at the right time. There's been such a captive audience online. We've all become social, you know, people on computers and phones, and it's I mean, it's bad, but it's also, you know, the best time to sort of do anything online at the moment. You've also got, you know, book clubs and all sorts of other things going on with your business. You're just absolutely smashing it. That must have been hard for you, someone being, you know, that you essentially are just talking to strangers on online. You know, you may know some of them, but most of them are strangers. How does that fit in with your previous feelings of anxiety and kind of like stress moving forward with that?
So weirdly, and actually one of my earliest videos, like IGTVs, was a real kind of vulnerable one for me. I was talking about owning your growth. And obviously it was at a stage where I had really sort of grown and changed. And I was finding it hard to be honest, not honest, I guess, just open with some people that I was really, really close to, because more than anything, I was probably judging like where I was from who I used to be. And I think actually who I used to be would find it very strange that I'm now a coach. And I think I was coming from that mindset. And I did this video talking about owning your growth. And one of the biggest things that I'd kind of shifted and changed, like during all of my personal development work, was previously I'd really held on to this idea that I didn't want to get married. I didn't believe in marriage. This maybe also comes why I spend a lot of time working with women. I had grown up a little bit in a sort of like man-hater environment slightly. My mum will kill me for saying that, but I had really like attached myself to this. And I'd realized during this kind of just all this work on myself that wasn't actually true. And I was holding on to that idea to protect myself. And I spoke about this on my on an IGTV, and it was really, really vulnerable for me. And that was actually easier because it wasn't people that I knew. And obviously I have an acting background. So kind of getting in front of a camera and things like that felt more like a comfort zone rather than saying it to the people that had heard me, you know, moan or complain or, you know, have the opposite opinion for so long. And I remember actually 2 of my closest friends messaged me and were like, oh my God, I've just seen this. Like, what? Like, why didn't you tell me? And actually they were then quite offended that I hadn't spoken to them first, and kind of couldn't see why that was easier. And I think it's just such a simple lesson in realizing that one person's comfort zone is like another person's like massive challenge. And it's like today I set up a new phone all by myself, and I genuinely, that is a real achievement for me. I don't like tech stuff. For somebody else, that's literally like, my boyfriend's like, I don't get it, like that, why can't you do that? And it's just accepting that for somebody, like something can be really scary and it's not for somebody else. So actually getting online and that kind of thing wasn't too scary. But what I did do to help me, I remember being quite nervous about doing my first like story, like talking story. And I just put on it, I took a screenshot, and I remember this so clearly, weirdly, I had 237 followers. And I said, when I've got 250, I'm going to talk on my stories. And I'd put it out there. So I just kind of given myself that timeline and that accountability. So then when it came round, I just did it. Whereas I think otherwise, I think otherwise I'd have just been like, just putting it off. So it's kind of like, I just had to make that decision. And I didn't do it immediately, but go, right, okay, when that happens, then I'll do it. So it's like little things like that work for you. Yeah,
that's it. It comes back to that whole thing of the scarcity and abundance kind of mindset. You know, you've come from a place just like me, you know, you both from the sort of acting, modeling, kind of presenting background, and we kind of are used to being in front of screens. So for us to get on a screen or a podcast or whatever, it's quite a natural thing to do. But it's because we're coming from a place of abundance. We've done it before. It's happened. You know, it's not a scary thing to do. But if you come from a place of scarcity where you're not sure what's going to happen, or you feel like you're going to lose out on something, or you feel like you're going to get, you know, ridiculed, or your anxiety is going to come back up again, why would you do it? Like, and it takes this real battle, like inner battle of you to be able to go, no, I'm doing it for the right reasons. And I think so many people go into that headspace of what they're going to lose of the situation rather than what they're going to gain, you know. And it's simple wording. And actually, as soon as you say it, it really does. If you think to yourself, right, what am I going to gain by going on social media and talking about this? Well, I'll gain respect from my peers, and, you know, I'll gain confidence, and, you know, I'll gain maybe some followers and whatever else it is, rather than thinking, what am I going to lose? Because then that automatically puts you in this negative downward spiral. So yeah, I think it's great that you forced yourself to have that accountability, because so important, so important. And it, you know, comes back to what we were saying before, that not everybody needs a coach, but a coach does give you things like accountability and that person that give you a kick up the arse when you said you're going to do something and then you don't follow through. But yeah, I think that's great. And now you've grown to over 1,000 followers in like 3 months. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's been like a great journey, and it has. And I think it's also then you're when you're in this abundant mindset as well, you notice opportunities, and you're more open to them, like this, like saying yes to this. Like, I'm doing a podcast tomorrow, and I've done a few different people's Instagram lives, and actually they're things that I really enjoy doing as well. And you notice them. And I think when you're in that scarcity mindset, you say no to things, or you probably just don't even give off the kind of energy of being open to doing something, so they always don't come your way. So yeah, it just completely changes how you approach things. And like you say, I do find, like, I actually I'm doing a new Instagram live series at the moment, and I'm working with a different coach actually on something separate. and I've invited her to do an episode, and I was quite nervous because I really see her as that authority figure for me, and we've got a similar size following, so it's not kind of not different in that sense. And I remember thinking, oh God, I'll be quite nervous if there's only a few people watching, but actually it doesn't matter if it's only a few people. One, a lot of people will watch it afterwards anyway, but also if you can impact one person, that's fine. That's
it.
Still something you've achieved.
That's it. I learned something not too long ago that was, if you make videos for just one person, like imagine your perfect client, your perfect viewer, and just make a video for them, right? Whether they watch it today, tomorrow, or next year, just make it for them. And not only does that change your mindset around how you present yourself, because you're not nervous about who might be watching, who might not be watching, whether it goes viral or not, whatever. You're just basically talking to that person, and all you got to do is take out whoever that person's name in your head is, because you then you'll also be talking to however many other people that are like that person. And that's how things grow. They don't grow, by thinking, oh, I'm going to make a video and it's going to go viral overnight. You think about making a video for that one person, and then that one person who gets really connected by that will then share it to another person who they think might do it, and then that person will share it, and then it grows organically. That in itself is something that I've learned over the years, and it's interesting. I used to have about 14,000 followers on Instagram, and I was like, when I was modeling and stuff, and it was great, but it was also so vapid, and they weren't people that I don't even know why I had that many followers in the first place. And I did a few reality TV shows, and it kind of just got the wrong type of crowd. And then when I did an 18-month, I just went off social media for 18 months, came back on it. I'd obviously lost quite a few, but I actually ended up going through and deleting followers from my account. And the reason I did this was for two reasons. One was because you all about, if you want to actually get people to see your posts, your engagement is a big thing. And obviously the engagement algorithm is the amount of followers you've got divided by how many, so the amount of followers you've got divided by the amount of people that interact with your post. So if you've got 1,000 followers and 10 people interact, then you've got, it's that's worse than having 100 people react. But it meant that if I deleted people, then it'd mean that more people reacting and the algorithm would be better. But also I just felt more liberated about the fact that the people that actually were seeing my posts were actually getting value from them. And if they didn't want to follow me anymore, great, go away. Like I just need people that actually care about what I'm putting out there.
It's sort of letting go of that numbers game, isn't it? And I think like there's part of you that does kind of play into that a bit. And I know that I really wanted to reach 1,000 followers. Like I decided I really wanted that as a bit of a benchmark. But at the same time, like it means nothing. And there are people with really, I mean, mine is obviously small anyway, but there are people with, just a couple of hundred that, their engagement is huge, and, they're sold out in whatever it might be that they're doing. So it's just accepting that just is not the be all and end all. And it's so interesting actually what you were saying there about that talking to one person. A few people I've spoken to recently, when you get really, really clear on your why, it just helps so much. And I was actually speaking to somebody yesterday, and she was really fretting about this post that she wanted to put out and just wasn't sure how it was going to come across. And she was worried it would come across a little bit preachy. And I'm like, well, the people that you want to speak to, are they going to think it's preachy? She's like, well, no, they will want to hear it. I'm like, okay, but like, are you happy then to kind of withhold that information from them? If you think it's something really important, if you're thinking of your ideal client, are you happy that you're kind of not letting them down, because I don't want to guilt somebody into doing it, but like you're not allowing them to have that experience, and suddenly making it not about you and going, actually, yeah, I want to do this for that person. You
are doing a disservice to people if you don't put out what you know. Simple as that. Selling is a service, and it's really, really interesting. There's a guy called Dean Grazioski, I think is. I apologize, Dean, if you're listening, but this is I got your surname slightly wrong. Anyway, he's a like marketing sales guru, and he talks about how if you're not selling, right, you haven't got a business. End of, full stop. Doesn't matter how many people you think you've got, in your Instagram, whatever. Like if you're not selling, you've not got a business. And selling is a service. So if you're selling to somebody, right, then you're not trying to scam them, you're not manipulating them, you're not trying to basically get them to, part of the hard-earned cash. You don't know what's going on in their mind. And if they are somebody who genuinely needs your help, right, then you're doing them a disservice by not offering them your services. It's up to them. Again, what we come back to with the choice thing, it's their decision, it's their choice to buy from you or not to buy from you. But if they don't buy from you, that's also fine. You know, having
Yeah.
zero expectations about this actually is a lot better to then be like, oh, I've got to put out this product and it's got to sell thousands, or I've got to put this post out and it's got to get loads of likes, because you then just start putting yourself in that scarcity mindset and you get into like this place of a negative feedback loop. Because I mean, I've seen it hundreds of times before, but people compare themselves so much to people on Instagram. I've had people compare themselves to me. I've had people message me and say, oh, how did you, how do you just have the confidence to put this out or put that out? And I'm like, don't compare yourself to me. My journey is completely different to yours, and I'm sure your journey is a lot more interesting than mine. So, just put out what you want to put out. If someone doesn't want to follow you, or someone doesn't want to talk to you, or someone doesn't want to look, like, let them. Let them. There are probably 100 other people that will want to watch that. And there's a guy, I always get his name wrong, I think it's Kevin Krause, who does a video on YouTube called 1,000 Fans. And if anyone hasn't seen it, just Google 1,000 fans on Google, and it'll come up as a video and an article. And he talks about how you need just 1,000 people to be your super fans. Now, they are people that will buy everything you sell, share everything you post, basically talk about you to anyone they know, promote you to the hills. Essentially, you just need 1,000 of them. Because if you've got, let's take a band, for example. Let's take someone like the Foo Fighters, who everyone knows, right? Let's say they've got 1,000 super fans. They release a single for, £3 or something. That's £3,000 automatically. They launch a T-shirt for £10. That's extra money. You've got, then they do a tour and it's 40 quid a ticket. That's another, over time, you can make easily 100, 150, 200 grand a year just by having 1,000 super fans. So talk to those super fans, find your 1,000, Bens or Sallys or Joes or whatever, and just talk to them, tell them what's going on, tell them what you really want to do. So I think it's, it's turning into a marketing 101 lesson here, but it is simple stuff, but yet people just don't do it. And I'm learning every single day. And this is what's brilliant about doing these shows, is because you get to talk to people who are in a similar game, but also a similar mindset. And you bounce ideas off each other and find what works and what doesn't. And it's interesting because success does leave clues.
Yeah.
It really does. People don't just do things kind of luckily and go, oh, that worked, let's try doing that again. There hasn't been a new invention really in such a long time. It's just people basically reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. And so I think, it's an interesting place that we live in this world, because you can really do whatever you want to do. You just have to find someone else that's done it before you and copy them and make it better.
Yeah. And it's this thing with this comparison as well. It's like, if you're comparing yourself too much to somebody else and you try and just do too much of what they're doing, you're going to attract people that aren't attracted to you.
That's it.
And it's like, actually, it's one of the affirmations that I now have as kind of my sort of one of the things I say daily. Connect with my business, I just say it's about me. And it sounds really sort of like big-headed or whatever, but I'm like, actually, it is about me. Like, it's my business. If somebody wants to work with me as a coach, it's because they've picked me. And I am what has attracted them to it, not just coaching in general. Otherwise, they could go with somebody else. And I think that's really helped me. And I still need to check back in with myself on it, to not kind of veer out, in that kind of stay in your own lane, like not worry too much what other people are doing. Absolutely look for inspiration, but don't allow it to kind of derail you. And I think I read it in The Comparison Cure by Lucy Sheridan. She was saying, if you see somebody doing really well, and this is this abundance and scarcity, don't see it as like, God, that happened for them, like how annoying. It's like, actually see that as proof that you can also do it.
Yes.
Like, there's literally proof that has been possible.
I love that. That's a really good way of looking at it. Really good. What's that book called? I'm going to definitely look that one up.
It's called The Comparison Cure.
Comparison Cure. I'm going to definitely look that one up. I'm always on the hunt for a good book. I got a Kindle for my birthday recently, and I don't know why I haven't got one before, because it's changed the game for me, to be honest with you. I've got probably about 50 books up here, of which I need to read. But the problem is, I go on Amazon store and I go to the 99p, Kindle list, and there's probably 10 on there that I'm like, I mean, it's 99p, why not? Let's just buy them all. So I've now got 1,000 books on my Kindle ready to go. So I just need I need to take a sabbatical like you and just go away for 4.5 months and just read the entire time.
Exactly.
But that's really, really good. And look, the other thing I wanted to say about comparison and sort of feedback loops is that, imagine if Instagram and all these social media platforms weren't there. Look at what life used to be like before the internet. It wasn't hard. It was a lot harder, obviously, for people to do business and stuff, but ultimately it was all about connection. You would do door-to-door sales, or you would call someone up on the phone, and it would just be a one-on-one connection that would build, right? And then most of the people's marketing would be done by word of mouth, because you couldn't afford to just get a billboard or, radio or TV. It was expensive. If you're starting in business, you had to be able to just do it word of mouth. And, a lot of what I think I know you do, and what a lot of what I do is I speak to people and get to know them on a sort of very personal level before I even introduce them to something like coaching or in anything in terms of what I do for work, because you've got to get to know someone before you can dive into their life. And, coaching is a very personal experience, and it's tailored to every single person you work with. There's no cheat sheet that's like, oh yeah, ask him this, ask him that, ask him this. There are some blanket questions that you can get out of everybody, but ultimately it's about a journey you go on with that person. And if you don't know that person, then you're not going to get anything out of them. And so, comparing yourself to people that are doing super well, they might just be doing something that's, unique to them, and working for them. To find your unique thing, your uniqueness is your competitive advantage.
Yeah.
It really, really is. There's an expression that I heard years ago, which is weird is a side effect of awesome. Which is true. Like if you're a bit weird and a bit quirky and a bit, like off the wall, that's cool, because that's different to everybody else, and it makes you unique. It makes you stand out from the crowd. It makes you, probably some people will be like, what? Other people are like, awesome, and it creates that polarized divide, which is what you really need in a world today. We live in a world of absolute noise, so much noise. So be that signal, be the person that kind of like stands and goes, hey, I'm doing something a bit different. And move in that direction, because you never know who else is also feeling that way, but hasn't got the confidence or the platform or the ability to stand up and say the same thing. So be a leader, be a leader in your field.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just got to get out there, speak to people as well, because you never know. Like, I think especially with coaching, you don't know who needs it, or who might know somebody else that's going to benefit, or just meeting people. And actually, obviously for me, that's something I'm just getting used to, just trying to get out of my own comfort zone. It's allowing me to grow as a person by making these new connections. And it's so interesting with the lockdown, obviously everything going online. I've actually made, genuine friends with people that I have never met. And that's something that's like, seems really bizarre, but actually I've got people that I speak to like every single week, have actual phone calls with as well, like not just on social media. And it's really great. And it's allowed me to really embrace, just to change and actually embrace what social media is. It's social, it's meant to be social. And I think, like you say, having a bit of a cull of your own followers and all of that, like, actually now that I use social media for business, I find it so much more enjoyable, because I'm really, really specific on who I follow and who follows me. And it makes it so much like a more enjoyable place to be, which I think we forget. Like, social media does get a bit of a bad rap, like a lot of the time.
It really does. It brings to mind that you are the five people you're the sum of the five people you hang around with the most. And interesting what you said about being in lockdown and having a social interaction more so than a in-person interaction. I'm the same. I've met people through Instagram mostly who have now become friends that I feel like I know better than some people I've known for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It's a really weird concept. Now that you say it, I'm kind of thinking back of all the people that I've kind of met over the last 3-6 months. And you're right. There's been advice I've had from people that have worked really well. There's people I've helped that I wouldn't have known. Like, I'd say 75% of my clients have come from basically just online interaction.
Yeah.
Which in a world of where coaching has been traditionally something you do face-to-face, I haven't done a face-to-face coaching session for over a year.
I've never done one.
Love that. You're like the new age coaches that don't do any. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, other than obviously like how I used to kind of coach within my like leadership role, actually, I've never done one. It's all been online. And also I think, like, one of my friends was like, oh, but will you not kind of switch to in person, like when you can? I said, I think I'll offer it as an option. But actually, if one of my biggest things is about life balance, giving you the option to just have your call and not need to commute and do this and do that is probably going to be just so much better and just more conducive to like how you're trying to live.
Think about this, right? I mean, you know this from your acting days, castings, okay? And castings were a bit of a hack, because you had to go into town and then had to go and stand in a queue with 30 other people that look just like you and have learned the same lines as you or whatever it might be. And then you have to be seen by the director for 2 minutes. They give you no indication of whether you got the job or not, and then you go home, and it's like 4 hours out your day sometimes, back and forth and waiting. Now you can cast from the lovely home that you live in, and you can probably do 3 in an hour, and you just record a video on Zoom and then send it via WeTransfer. Like, unbelievable balance in life, because it means then you can actually plan stuff around your day. You can say, oh, I can do that in a half an hour I've got between this and that, and it just creates so much more opportunity. Now, I don't know how it's going to be in 20 years time, if this is the way that we're going to live now forever, because there's obviously going to be some social aspects of that that's going to cause us to how do I say this, like, our social interaction as a human in person is going to definitely sort of
suffer in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why they've had such a strong opinion about letting schools go back as soon as possible, because kids need that. It's such an intense and important part of development. But I have never ever spoken to my computer more than I have in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Me and Maggie here, Maggie the MacBook Air, are good friends. We have a lot of time together. But it's true. Like I just talk all day long to this computer, and it just feels normal. It feels super normal. But the ability that we have, the technology to do this, I think is fantastic. And I think that for you to be able to help people, not just in the UK and around your area, but around the world as well.
I also think what I realized for me, one thing that really, I guess I was nervous about kind of leaving my job and working for myself, was I do like, sounds like a bit of a contradiction, but I do like actually being around people, even though I have that anxiety around it. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm going to miss having colleagues and like that kind of just atmosphere.
Banter.
And it's something, and it's something that came out in a coaching session as a client that I had. We were kind of doing like a values sort of exercise. And one of the biggest values was around people, but not just about helping people, but also like needing to have those interactions, which actually is why it's been amazing that, I've created these friendships with people. I'm creating my like network of colleagues, and I'm choosing them, which, normally you don't get to do.
That's it.
So actually I'm learning like, what is it that I will need to keep me satisfied and fulfilled in my role, not just those coaching hours when you're interacting, but the rest of your time. So I need those interactions with people that aren't a client, that are a colleague, and it's been so important for me to learn that, so I can implement it into my business from day one.
I love that. I think you've definitely got the right outlook and headspace about going forward in whatever is going to be the next kind of couple of months / years. But like, I'm super excited about seeing where your journey goes, because as I watch every day when I go on Instagram, you always pop up, and because it's such a great thing to see you really plugging away. And to be honest with you, I haven't done anything on Instagram for about 3 weeks, which is quite different. I've been working on doing this podcast and other things, but it's funny how you do go through waves and troughs. But seeing you when I do go on, it's definitely inspiring to see, like, pushing the boat out and putting yourself out there, which is really important. Before we wrap it up, I just wanted to talk to you about books, because I know you're a big reader, and I wanted to ask you, first of all, what's the best book you've read this year? Two really, but Brene Brown's Daring Greatly for me was like just a really sort of, I read it while I was away, and then I reread it kind of this year, and I just think it's incredible in terms of that being vulnerable. And I've just finished reading Untamed, which is the next book for my book club by Glennon Doyle, which is also amazing and very focused on kind of women and how we've been kind of brainwashed almost to kind of think. So both of those are, just great books. Fantastic. I have to get those both on my Kindle list as well.
Yes.
Amelia, first of all, thank you so much for being here today with me. I really appreciate your time, your energy, everything that you've said has been really helpful and valuable. And I'm sure that everyone listening will be really, really excited to listen to this one over and over again. Where can people find you if they wanted to come and learn a bit more about you, or a bit more about your coaching, and a bit more about your courses and things like that?
So my Instagram, which is Amelia Kirk Coaching, is probably the best place that I am. As you said, I'm on there every single day. Website as well is just Amelia Kirk Coaching. And on both of those, you've got links to my book club, my Facebook groups. So yeah, there is your best place to start. Fantastic. And look, from me, this has been an amazing podcast. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. And look, I hope we can do this again at some point in the future. Yeah, I've loved it. It's been great. In the meantime, I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye.